Let's take a look at weapon mountings in Battletech. We're going to pull in a little bit of mech creation, the internals of a mech, how they run, and this is important in tactically evaluating a mech for the first time. You've got the technical manuals, you've got your next miniature purchase all lined up, and you're deciding what you want to play. And there is this unlock period. There is this time of experimentation in learning what the mech can do, and some are obvious, some are not as obvious on there. And then, of course, you're going to layer over and you're going to play your player personality, your player style on it. And what prompted this vlog was, I think about 2 days ago, I posted up a vlog on playing the Ost War and some of the challenges with that. A good mech, but a little bit polarizing with what it does. So that leads into mech locations. You're building a mech, you've got the tonnage. The two things really are the tonnage, the heat sinks, and the engine size. And the other base components too, but the engine size, that's going to that's going to allow you to calculate just how many weapons you can bring. And then, of course, the weapons themselves are going to take up space. And if they're ballistic weapons, there's going to be some ammunition. You got to kind of make a decision, how big do you want that ammo bin to realistically be on there. And in that equation, mounting the weapons on different points, different places on there. And some are very straightforward, and some, well, not so straightforward, and a little bit deceptive in a good way, why you'd maybe want to mount something somewhere. So we have the arms, we have the torso, front and rear. We're going to lump the center, the left and right torso together for this. Same with the rear. Legs and head. So the first thing about mounting weapons on the arm, and this is true looking at a medium mech, a heavy mech, and an assault mech. Light mechs I'm kind of putting in their own category because they are so light in terms of armor that they bring. Because remember, you need the components just to run the mech. And you need a decent engine on there to calculate and generate some speed for a light mech, because that's the only thing that's going to save it. Then you've got tonnage maybe for one main weapon, usually a medium laser, because a medium laser is the most efficient weapon in the game in terms of heat, tonnage, range, and damage. You look at that matrix, it's the most potent weapon in the game. And then, of course, maybe a secondary weapon. And the secondary weapons are usually really light stuff like machine guns or SRM 2-packs, things like that. You don't have a lot of room, and you don't have a lot of tonnage for everything. So we're going to put light mechs aside, because generally if you get hit anywhere, if you take one hit anywhere, you're probably going to internals. If you get hit with a PPC, it's going to internals. If you get hit with an autocannon 20, it's probably just going to shatter the whole mech on there. So putting that aside, mediums, heavies, assaults. The arms are the weakest spot on the mech in that they carry the least amount of armor. And you can jack the armor up on them, but compared to the center torso, compared to the legs, there's less. And the arms are not mission critical for a mech to function. Unless there's ammo in there and it goes crit, you could blow off both arms and still be functional on there. If you get your legs blown off, you're still functional, but your mobility is really crippled, and your ability to shoot and facing is really, really crippled. You lose the torsos, you lose the center torso, you're out of the game. So we're going to put a lot of armor on there. So weapons mounted in the arm, at first glance, you're like, well, if my arms get blown off, I lose the weapon. Yes, but the advantage that they have is it frees up space in the rest of your mech. And there's also facing in Battletech. You have more facing options with the arms, being able to scope it out. And depending on the mech itself and some of the internals, the quick draw comes to mind. You can flip the arms backwards. And by arms, it could even be like battle pods or something like that. We're using arm as like a location. Most of the time, it's a physical fist a physical arm, being a mech, but it could be battle pods or other aspects. Sometimes you can flip them behind. Moving into the center torso, the left torso, the right torso on the front, we see a lot of weapons mounted in here because this is the core. It can support heavier weapons with the internals. You have a lot of protection. Whatever your weight class is, you're going to put most of the armor in there because like a battle tank, you're going to try and keep that facing literally forward on there. Some mechs, we're going to look at the awesome mech. You've got 2 PPCs, left torso, right torso. Energy, no ammo. That takes a lot to put down. It also has the PPC in the arm. If you blow the arm off, it's still functioning. And if a mech is able to continue shooting, some terminology for Battletech for you new players out there, if you have weapons in your center torso, left torso, right torso, and you get your arms blown off, whether they have weapons or not, that's called a zombie mech. You're essentially a walking zombie now, but you're still extremely dangerous. You've still got a lot of potency. You've still got a lot of bite in there with what you can deliver. So this is why we see, especially on the heavier mechs, because that is space and tonnage that we can rack these weapons on, they're also the most protected. Some mechs, as a point of tactica, you see they have rear weapons, the Battlemaster, the Dragon, and usually these rear weapons are medium lasers, because again, the range, the damage, the tonnage, often it'll be a light mech that wants to get behind you. So if I can at least, look, we're going to do our best not to let anybody get behind us, but having that weapon there is a little bit of a deterrent. Not so much when they're sneaking up on, and not so much when they're point blank on you, but as a mech is sneaking up on you or making on its way in, you've got some rear-facing weapons. It's kind of a unique feature. But generally speaking, and I'm trying to think of an example, stock mech or variant, not a custom build, mech lab type thing, I really can't think of any mechs that have like missiles in the back or really crazy heavy weapons in the back. There are some other oddities out there. There is a missile carrier. The name I'm forgetting in the moment. It's a missile carrier, and it has flamers in the rear. So it's a vehicle with that. So you're shooting the missiles, and then I guess if infantry or someone's sneaking up on you, they're going to roast you with flamers. Or maybe if you're withdrawing and moving away, you're going to roast with flamers and create that diversion. So you see some of those. So now we move to the legs. And then we've got the head. And it took me a little while to understand head-mounted weapons. Why on there, given that it is so limited? Legs. Occasionally, the Crusader comes to mind based on tonnage, based on location. You'll have some weapons mounted in the legs, usually lighter missile systems because you can put the missiles in there and then you can have the ammo feed from the torso because it has to be one spot, one location away in order to feed on there. That's kind of an oddity because the legs have decent armor. Usually it's like the torso has the most, then the legs, then the arms. But there are some mechs like the Warhammer, which are a little underpowered in the legs. And with that, we don't really see that many weapons mounted in the legs because the main challenge is facing. You can't torso twist your legs. You don't have the mobility of your arms on there. It's pretty much forward firing arc only. Depending on the location, there could be some water issues. If you're in water, you can't fire them, and you can't kick with them. So there are some limitations on that, which is why we see mainly this torso tank type weapon. So the head, there's a couple of mechs out there that have a small laser in the head. I believe the Banshee has one in there. Other mechs that have that in there, why would you put a weapon in the head on there? And why would you put a small laser that just has minimal damage, minimal range on there? Well, this was kind of interesting what I realized, really looking at it and looking at some of the mechs that incorporate that and trying to really maximize your internal structure of the mech. You obviously want to carry as many weapons as you can, and you want to try and carry them in the similar range brackets. So I want to have one or two weapons that are long range, one or two weapons that are medium, a few weapons that are small. If I'm looking at an assault mech or a heavy mech, similar to a medium mech too, optimally. This way, as I approach, I have these different weapon bands. When I get so close, I want to have every single weapon available to me, maybe even physical attacks. So if I put a laser in the head, it's going to be a small laser because I'm very, very limited with the internal structure of what I can put in there, because the head can only support so much. It's got to have the sensors, the cockpit, life support, ejection system, all that in-game summarized internals. That really only leaves space and tonnage, if I have it, due to the tonnage, for that small laser. It's another weapon. It's a free weapon. It's a weapon that I don't need my hands for, so I can punch. It's a weapon that I'm always going to have unless I get destroyed. If I get cored out in the torso, well, I'm done. The game's over. If I get my head blown off, well, the game's over. But otherwise, I'm always going to have it. You can blow off my arms. You can blow off both my legs. You can damage my internals, blast those out, left side, right side, 2 engine hits. I'm still going. And really looking at some of my past battles and the mechs that I've selected with the small lasers in the head, they've survived. Even when they haven't survived and the mech got cored out and blown up, the small laser in the head was still going on there. So it's a unique little interesting quirk, design quirk in how mechs are made, that you want to stack that small laser in the head. The Grasshopper also has a long-range missile 5-pack in there. There are other mechs with the weapon in there that utilize that tonnage and utilize that space. So understanding the weapons, why they're there, how they're there, and what weapons are more vulnerable than others to attacks in the game.